We've seen many intense moments on Bar Rescue, but here are some that boiled Jon Taffer's blood. Well, looks like things are gonna get really heated in here. Just like how things got intense at Zanzibar in Denver. This Season 3 episode was titled Empty Pockets, which really does justice to what was going on at this establishment. Having first opened back in 2009, this bar was owned by Amy Benari, an ex-Israeli army cadet. He moved to the land of opportunities to find his passion and start a business of his own. Benari was lucky enough to start it at the peak of modernization because prior to this, there were absolutely no bars in downtown Denver. So obviously, people welcomed it with open arms, and this helped Benari earn over $450,000 every year. Boy, was this bar successful. But in the blink of an eye, things drastically changed for the once successful bar. Unfortunately, Benari was involved in an almost fatal car accident in 2011, and the bar was never the same again. With no one to support the business, and Benari being MIA, the bar was in great peril. After returning from his 6-month recovery period, Benari made a series of horrible mistakes. He not only fired his entire senior staff, but replaced them with a new team that had no experience. By then, Benari was already drowning in debt and only had another 6 months before the bar would close down for good. That's when Taffer, along with Jenny Costa, a renowned bartender, and chef Brian Duffy headed to Denver to save the bar. When Taffer was watching the surveillance footage, he was left in utter shock. Benari was pouring out free drinks for everyone and had the audacity to ask his manager if they were making money. I guess now we know why the bar was going under. But Benari didn't stop at one, he went on to open 3 full bottles and gave them away for free.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, free champagne!
From overpoured drinks to overly drunk patrons to even a disgusting kitchen, this bar was a true candidate for the show. After his recon, Taffer immediately took action and shut the business down. This was so he could make a new concept for the bar while also training the staff on the bar basics. Through all of this, Benari was being extremely uncooperative. He actively threw fits of rage throughout the episode and blew up on his staff at any chance he got. And when it came time to take responsibility for his mistakes, he acted like he never made any in the first place. Was Benari just on edge? Or was he a rage monster ready to blow up?
This is my business. You will have to consult with me. My philosophy is just as good.
Whatever the case, he was delusional. After the experts trained the staff, the bar was ready for the soft opening. But things were looking really grim since the bar couldn't even handle the heat of the stress test. Even with the kitchen being able to make food at a good pace, the orders weren't reaching the table due to a shortage of kitchen staff.
This poor guy has to cook the food, run the food to the tables, bust the plates back in, and wash glassware.
Despite the situation, Benari was entertaining his customers by doing this.
Close your hand and prevent me from taking the corn.
Needless to say, the soft opening went sideways, and Taffer was very angry about it. Even with Chef Duffy working in the kitchen, things went completely south and everyone was sent into chaos.
They should have said something before. I cannot be everywhere. Step aside. Go back. I'll take care of it.
Benari's ignorance was now getting to Chef Duffy, who also lost his cool. Duffy screamed at Benari, telling him that he was the cause of the chaos and that the bar's failure was because of him. The argument got so heated that Benari simply walked out on Duffy.
You have no idea what you're doing!
Don't talk to me, I'm busy!
You've got to be kidding me!
Following this incident, Taffer went up to the main bar and called off the soft opening. Taffer took a stand and asked the patrons if they thought the place was a mess, to which the crowd responded with a resounding yes. Taffer even went as far as to call out Benari's irresponsibility.
If you think I'm gonna lay down and take it, you are 100% mistaken.
Talk about a rude showdown. Soon after, Taffer gathered both the staff and Benari for a meeting. This is when Taffer broke into a fit of rage and Benari became the butt of Taffer's insults. Obviously, the man wasn't pleased by any of this. As the meeting pushed on, Benari expressed his displeasure about Taffer's insults, but the famous rescuer could care less. Taffer stuck to his opinion of Benari being an utter disgrace to the bar industry and refused to acknowledge that the man was a good bar owner. This argument continued to boil until both Benari and Taffer were sizzling with rage. Things were looking like they were gonna turn ugly, and very soon.
And it was only a third full.
Who was in charge of the kitchen tonight?
He and you.
Mr. Fatboy.
With Taffer and Benari at each other's throats, the staff and crew were caught in the crossfire of it all. Benari finally took a shot at Chef Duffy by calling him this.
I have never in my entire
Go
career.
back to your boss. Fatboy!
This is where things really started to go downhill. Duffy snapped at Benari, who refused to back down at any cost. Taffer was so incredibly done with Benari's antics, and that's when, bam.
You disrespectful son of a bitch! How
Don't
dare
touch
you!
me! Don't touch me!
Things had progressed so far that Taffer and Benari had pulled their fists out. Thankfully, in the end, the fight was stopped by a bouncer on the scene. Taffer did leave the bar since he didn't want to instigate the fight any further.
That guy is one of the biggest I've ever met. Good night.
Talk about an eruption of rage. Gosh, none of us saw that coming. But this next bar had a bartender who couldn't handle the bar and manhandled Taffer. We're now heading over to a bar in Southfield, Michigan called Jazz Cats. The first thing Taffer decided to do was recon the bar and see how smoothly or badly it was functioning. This time around, Taffer was joined by Grammy and Emmy Award-winning jazz bassist Robert Hurst. As Taffer watched the unraveling of events from his car, one particular bartender, Austin, caught the attention of everyone with his actions. When a bar patron complained about not receiving his drink for the last 45 minutes, Austin did something appalling.
Bro, because first of all, I'm not a kid.
Instead of helping the customer who just wanted to resolve the issue, Austin decided it would be a good idea to be hostile about the complaint. He even tried to instigate a fight with the patron who was just trying to leave the bar and confronted him head on. But thankfully, he was pulled aside by the manager and some other staff members. This is when Taffer decided to intervene and entered the business. Taffer made his way over to the bar and interacted with some of the patrons. Meanwhile, Austin was cooling off in the back. That's when Taffer called out to him so he could have a talk with him. As Taffer tried to confront him about his foul behavior, Austin refused to listen to his advice and started talking back to Taffer. Austin was so riled up that he totally lost his cool. This guy was just asking for a fight.
Do you always have an attitude like this?
Like what?
As the two continued to argue, all of the customers already had their phones out, recording the whole confrontation. This wasn't a good thing for a bar that was close to shutting down. When Taffer deemed Austin to be the cause for the bar's demise, this guy just couldn't take it anymore. Austin began to get really pissed by the situation. With the argument pushing on, Taffer and Austin eventually got in each other's faces, and it looked like things were gonna head south. Austin was on his last leg when Taffer called him a piece of shit.
Drake, get the I ain't no mother kid. Got money in my pockets, you mother.
You're hurting the owner of this bar!
This is when Austin tried to shove Taffer and essentially tried to fight him. It took 3 staff members to pull him aside and keep him from attacking Taffer. If you thought that was a close call, wait till you see what happened in Lakewood, Colorado. Summit House Grill and Tap was owned by Josh and Alexia Lubliner, who opened it back in 2014. The bar was Josh's dream, and his supportive wife went along with it. At first, the bar was successful and made a decent income. But Josh, who was forced to take a more active role in the bar, had started to develop a habit of drinking to stay stress-free.
He's just sitting back, drinking, making a fool of himself, making a fool of this place.
As a result, the bar really started to deteriorate to the point that he had to be babysat by his manager. With all of these problems present, Taffer was there to resolve the issue and bring back the bar to its glory days. For recon, Taffer was joined by Alexia to see what a typical day at the bar was like. Josh was seen drinking heavily and getting physically and verbally abusive with his staff. Taffer, who was watching all of this, was extremely disappointed. And you know what else is disappointing? The fact that you probably haven't dropped a like yet and subscribed to our channel. Guys, we put our all into these videos, so it wouldn't hurt to click a few buttons, right? Plus, it's completely free to do so why not just do it? Now that we have that out of the way, let's get back into this fantastic video. After watching for a while longer, Taffer decided to confront Lubliner and headed into the bar where he thoroughly chewed out the owner. What Taffer did next was totally unexpected.
You've been embarrassing her all night, leaning in on these girls.
To actually blame your failure on her?
Was this the end of the showdown? Absolutely not, it was only the beginning. As Taffer continued to call out Josh for being a disgrace to his entire family, the entire crowd at the bar stood witness to this. An embarrassing moment indeed. Following the heated abuse that Taffer sent the owner's way, Lubliner was asked to leave the premises. An owner being kicked out of his own bar is as disgraceful as it gets. Since the owner was resisting, a bartender named Travis had to forcefully kick his own boss out of the bar, and a struggle broke out between the two. Well, these were the times that Taffer got involved in a fight. If you thought these moments were bad, things on Bar Rescue can get a lot worse. From staff members dancing on bar counters to bartenders tugging each other's hair, things can get really heated on the show. This next bar owner was actually disgusting. In season 4, Taffer visited Ciravello's bar in Long Beach, California, which was owned by Danny Harris. Back in the day, the bar was his favorite hangout, so when it went on the market, he bought it. However, Danny couldn't buy the bar by himself. So he got 3 investors for the bar, Justin and Val Allen, as well as Marcus Rosenthal. They all put in $50,000 each, making them majority owners. As for Danny, he invested $111,000 into the bar, but only owned 40% of it. Now, the 3 investors only put in their money because they loved Danny. They also saw the bar as an opportunity to make some income and, of course, have some fun. Little did Danny know that buying the bar meant giving his full commitment. Danny thought that owning a bar just meant handing out good food and drinks. Well, he forgot about the maintenance part of it. Soon enough, the bar was in dire need of repairs, but Danny didn't have enough money to fix it.
We're struggling on money.
With time, the clientele started looking for better options in the neighborhood. Because, well, who likes a shabby bar anyway? A few months in, the situation was looking very grim. At the time of filming, the bar was $375,000 in debt and was consistently losing $12,000 to $15,000 a month. And trust me, that's no joke. The bar had 4 months left before they would have to forcibly close down, so Danny reached out to Taffer for some help. In this episode, Taffer brought in his expert chef Brendan Collins and mixologist Lisa Marie Joyce to help rescue the bar. But before they made an appearance, Taffer's wife Nicole and her friend Ashley went undercover. They would give Taffer some much needed insight about the service. Once seated at the counter, Nicole ordered a whiskey sour and Ashley got an old-fashioned. When they received their drinks, both drinks looked disgusting. And when the ladies made the other bartender remake their drinks, whatever they were served was still awful.
One bartender made a drink. Literally 5 minutes later, another bartender remade the drinks and they looked completely different.
Nicole also ordered everything from the menu to find out how good the food was. However, the meals they received were as terrible as the drinks. Each and every dish was so full of grease that it made the entire dish slimy. At this point, Taffer had seen enough and decided to confront the owner. Upon meeting him, Taffer believed that Danny was inconsistent. When Taffer showed the pasta dish to Danny, the owner was well aware of the issues, which made Taffer furious. And why wouldn't he be?
And say to yourself, this isn't right, and then you brought it out anyway.
Danny knew exactly how the dish was cooked and still decided to serve it to the customers. How could he be this obtuse? But despite seeing Taffer's point, Danny didn't seem to care at all. It actually looked like he was smiling and passing it off as a small mistake. Taffer, however, was disappointed. He did send in his wife after all, and this is how she was being treated. It was Danny's duty to fix these problems, but he was very much a part of them. Even though Justin, Val, and Marcus owned 60% of the business, they were just remote investors. On site, it was only Danny who screwed up the business. Taffer was baffled why the investors, who owned a majority of the business, never did something about it. And when he questioned them, none of them had a word to say.
You guys own 60% of this business. You control it.
Already fed up with the situation, Taffer suggested that the owners consider doing a hostile takeover. But soon after, Danny laughed off the suggestion as if it were a joke. This infuriated the bar genius. When Taffer asked him what was so funny about it, Danny said something absolutely pathetic.
You guys think you're acting kind of a little crazy.
Taffer, however, tried to keep his cool because Danny wasn't making any sense anymore. Taffer then explained to Danny that he was only trying to get through to him since the investors couldn't. Instead of just understanding the situation, Danny was so stubborn that he shamelessly told Taffer that he was tuning him out. The famous rescuer was so pissed that he tried one last time to make Danny understand by saying,
Your bar sucks, and you're gonna stand there and defend it in front of him?
Taffer was annoyed with the way that Danny was defending himself. The owner actually began to attack Taffer for his methods. He even told the bar genius that the tactics he was using were f***ed up. Taffer couldn't believe how arrogant and irresponsible Danny was. He was completely repulsed with Danny's behavior. And what's more, Nicole would probably get sick because of the disgusting food she just ate. But Danny could care less. He didn't even care about the customers who might go home sick after dining at his bar. And that was unacceptable. Danny could lose all the money that he wanted, but he could put someone's life at risk. And to make sure that everyone got his point, this is what Taffer did.
You get people sick? That is unacceptable. Clean up your mess.
Now, Danny not only had to repair the bar, but also get new cutlery. But in this next bar, Taffer was so mad that he didn't want to spend 1 second more in the kitchen. In Season 3, Taffer visited Fairways Golf Bar and Grill in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Richard Jordan had bought the bar after being in the finance sector for 10 years. He had no idea how to run a bar, but the idea of owning one fascinated him. He came up with weird stuff to make it work, but sadly, none of it helped the business. When I say weird, I mean this $40,000 golf simulator. But did it help draw in more customers? Nope, it failed miserably. Now, I have no idea why he thought this was a great idea. He could have easily made better use of that money on something that could have actually helped the bar. But that wasn't the only thing. Richard also tried his hand at several other marketing strategies like bingo, but that didn't work very well. Since the business swiftly went downhill, Richard had to return to his old job just to keep things running. While he got some money, he handed the responsibility of managing the bar to Michelle. Even though he left her to look after the bar, Richard hardly allowed her to do what she needed effectively. Kevin, the cook, who was Richard's friend, neither cared about the cooking nor the cleaning. Thanks to the poor management, Richard was $150,000 in debt. When Taffer arrived, he surveyed the bar with health inspector Steve Blavat. And they noticed that the ceiling was covered in grease and leaky pipes. Experts chef Brian Duffy and mixologist Phil Wills stepped in as Taffer's spies. And they ordered everything from the menu, including 7 drinks to gauge the staff and their service. While most chefs would get to work upon receiving an order, Kevin started laughing after seeing the long receipt. Meanwhile, Chef Brian and Phil were served their drinks on time, but the drink came with a special garnish of flies.
There are bugs in the bar too.
But that was just the beginning, since the horror show had yet to come. When Phil received his beer, it was served in a frosty mug and it was only half full. To make matters worse, when Phil tasted it, the beer had a peculiar metallic taste.
Right when it hit the bottom of my stomach, I knew something was wrong.
Meanwhile, an even more terrifying scene was taking place in the kitchen. Kevin was seen committing a series of health code violations, and Steve was bewildered by how Kevin lasted this long. Kevin didn't even bother washing his hands at all. He was seen working with raw pork, then switching over to beef using the same bare hands. He didn't give a damn about cross-contamination. He probably didn't even know what it meant to maintain sanitary conditions in the kitchen. To make matters worse, he used a dirty charred bowl to cover the burgers. My heart goes out to the customers who were eating there that night. They have no idea what was going on there. Despite all the shabby work, it took 29 minutes for the experts to receive their orders, and they only received a few of them. Right down to the chips and salsa to the fried mushrooms, none of it was good. The burger was so undercooked that you could actually see the blood oozing out from it. And remember how Phil was talking about the weird tasting beer? Well, he had to get it out of his system.
Oh my God, he threw up.
By now, Taffer and Steve had seen enough and barged into the bar before more customers got sick. Taffer first confronted Richard about the bar's terrible practices and about Phil getting sick. It was then discovered that the beer served to Phil had expired, and Michelle had no idea about it. When Chef Brian pointed out that the fried mushroom had dirt on the bottom of it, Richard and Michelle were in denial about it. To prove his point, Taffer headed into the kitchen with Chef Brian and Steve for a quick inspection. Once there, the first thing Taffer did was make Kevin taste the salsa, and this is how he reacted.
What do you think about that? Tastes like it's bubbling.
From a fryer that was incredibly greasy to splashes of food all over the kitchen floor, it was clear that this kitchen hadn't been cleaned for years. Taffer then found 3 huge containers of raw meat sitting on the counter. And when they checked what the temperature was at, this is what happened.
68.7 degrees.
Throw it out.
Good job, chef.
When Taffer and his experts checked the walk-in fridge out, it was even more horrifying. There was mold everywhere, which isn't only hazardous to the customers, but also the people who use it as well. And Taffer only had one thing to say.
Get out of here.
But just then, Chef Brian spotted something. And you won't believe what it was. Forget mold, you would have never seen this in any other walk-in before.
Look at this.
Oh my God. You don't want to be breathing that stuff in.
And after seeing this, Taffer truly lost it.
Get out of here. Get the out of here. This is unbelievable.
Wait, didn't the experts order fried mushrooms earlier? I really hope Kevin didn't use these. If you thought that this was Taffer's craziest outburst, then wait till you see this next one where words made no difference, so Taffer had to use his fists. In Season 3, Taffer visited Zanzibar in Denver, Colorado. Owned by Amy Benari, this bar was opened in 2009. Amy immigrated to Denver, Colorado after completing his service in the Israeli army. The bar became quite famous since it was one of the first bars in downtown Denver. Zanzibar initially made around $38,000 a month, but in 2011, after a near-fatal car accident, Amy stayed away from the bar. The lack of supervision enabled the staff to misbehave with the customers, which led to the eventual decline of the bar. At the time of filming, Amy returned to the bar 6 months prior and fired the entire old staff. He then hired new ones in hopes of bringing back the customers. But as Eleanor Roosevelt said, true hospitality consists of giving the best of yourself to your guests. And the old staff of Zanzibar failed to give this necessary hospitality, causing lasting damage. Amy lost $2,000 to $3,000 a month and was close to losing the business after 6 months. Amy began to run his staff with an iron fist and invested around $250,000 into the establishment. Denver, Colorado's downtown district is home to college students who often look for lively party atmospheres. The new restaurants in the neighborhood flourished since they had what the young crowd was looking for. Later on, Taffer brought in 2 recent college graduates, Cameo and Nick, to survey the bar. What's more, he brought in expert bartender Jenny Costa and expert chef Duffy to get some insight. When they arrived at the bar, Amy was seen yelling free beer, which is a really dumb move. Especially considering how much the bar was losing, but Amy was desperate to get customers. As Nick and Cameo sat at the bar, none of the bartenders paid attention to them. They were also pestered by a drunken customer who made Cameo incredibly uncomfortable. Instead of just making the customer leave the bar, one of the bartenders gave the customer more drinks. Anyway, the drinks that Nick and Cameo received had way too much alcohol. What's more, the food that they ordered was delivered by the kitchen staff, who seemed to have no idea about health code violations. This man had the same gloves, touched other patrons, and sneezed on it too. Ew! Seeing this, Amy stepped in and gave away free champagne shots, which cost him 6 entire bottles. I don't have to tell you how expensive champagne is. That's insane! Taffer then entered and found 2 hammered customers, which pissed him off a lot.
When we're irresponsible and we hurt people, I get angry.
He then walked into the kitchen and lectured them about cross-contamination and made them throw out everything. Taffer scolded the staff for allowing the customers to get so wasted that they couldn't walk or even passed out. He ordered them to wash the place out clean, which was his only condition to help the bar out. The next day, Taffer came to a cleaner bar and met with the staff, asking them about their positions. Sarah said that she was the bar manager, but not the official manager. It was clear to Taffer that Amy didn't listen to his staff. Then, a very disturbing revelation was made about Amy. Amy offered free sex to the customers. What the actual hell? And Taffer couldn't help but berate him for this. But what's even worse is that in 2 days' time, Amy had given away almost $2,500 worth of free alcohol. After listening to this, Amy furiously started throwing plates at the wall. I really don't know how this was supposed to help anything, but whatever. Taffer then brought in his experts. Jenny helped the bartenders improve their pouring techniques by blindfolding them to get them used to pouring properly. Then Chef Brian made Chef Dave cook the top 3 dishes at the bar. Before the stress test, Taffer announced that he wanted the ticket time to be 12 minutes. As the bar opened, Taffer brought in the target audience. So how did it go? The stress test was a massive failure. The bartenders were still overpouring, were very disorganized, and also mixed up tables. On top of that, no one was getting the dirty glasses, and they soon ran out of clean ones. And guess who was the biggest disaster of them all? Amy. So this is what Taffer did next.
Does everybody know what a show is?
With that, Taffer shut the bar down for the night. He then told the customers to return in 3 days after the bar was revamped. When Taffer called out Amy and yelled "shame on you" at him, all the owner did was just nod with a smug smile. But that doesn't mean he wasn't pissed. Take a look at what Amy had to say.
John doesn't know what he's dealing with. You think I'm gonna lay down and take it?
After closing the bar, Taffer had another meeting with the staff. He told them about how disappointed he was with them, and more so with Amy. And that's when all hell broke loose.
This is the night you
This is
show
not
me
a
how
stress
you
test.
are.
Absolutely not.
Both men were equally fired up, and none of them were willing to back down. Amy went on and on about how he was humiliated in front of the customers. And Taffer couldn't believe that after all that, Amy was still concerned about his ego and nothing else. Taffer then asked Sarah if he was unreasonable, and Sarah, without any hesitation, responded with a big no. And seeing the plight of the staff, Taffer said,
It's all about his ego, Mr. Entertainer. How about them?
Taffer was infuriated with Amy's attitude, and what bothered him more is that Amy considered his staff as immature kids. Hearing this, the bar genius told Amy that he would never succeed if he didn't believe in his staff. Amy then started to rant on how to do business. But Taffer wasn't here for the lessons. While he tried his best to ignore Amy's arrogance, what Amy said next was extremely disrespectful and rude. When Chef Brian tried to explain the dire situation in the kitchen, Amy bluntly called him a fat boy. Amy began to body shame, and everyone was shocked. Things escalated from then on into what might be one of the biggest fights in the history of bar rescue.
Don't back me!
There was no way Taffer would tolerate someone being so vile to an expert who just came to save his business. So these were the times that Jon Taffer lost his mind on bar rescue. Thankfully, after all the drama that unfolded at Zanzibar, it looks like Taffer's efforts actually paid off. It is one of the very few bars that's still up and running to this very day, but I'll always remember it as the most dramatic episode to have ever been aired on the show. However, Taffer was so disappointed in this next owner that you won't believe what he said.
30 years I've been rescuing bars, and I have never seen anything like this.
From bar owners trying to explain away their failures to staff members desperately justifying their mistakes, it's a never-ending deluge of lame excuses and mind-boggling mental gymnastics. Trust me, you're not ready for this outrageous excuse, which will probably make your eyes roll out of your head. And Jon simply couldn't make heads or tails of it.
I saw an animal in here before.
That's a squirrel.
How can we leave that there?
Okay, but what if his children are in there?
So let's get into this dumpster fire of a disaster, shall we? So back in '92, Renee had a brilliant idea to create a bike-themed bar, which was supposed to be the hottest spot in town. But guess what? It became irrelevant faster than a TikTok trend. How did they end up in such hot water that they had to call for a rescue? Well, the answer should be obvious. Get ready, cause it's about to get real cringe up in here. You see, when it comes to this owner, she had a whole arsenal of excuses lined up to defend their and their employees' failures. And we're not just talking about one employee. Oh no. We're talking about a whole squad of them, all of whom dropped the ball super hard.
I'm not sure what it is. We're just barely holding on.
No doubt, she tried every trick in the book to reverse the bar's fortunes. From karaoke nights to pool tournaments, she threw all the spaghetti against the wall, hoping that something would stick. But here's the harsh truth. She never once paused to reflect on the real issue at hand. Instead, she conveniently shifted the blame to the general manager, Wayne. I mean, seriously? How could you expect your employees to care about your business when you've mentally checked out yourself? It's like setting them up for failure from the get-go. And guess what? Failure is exactly what followed. The bar was quickly sinking with morale at an all-time low. It's a textbook case of poor leadership, nothing more to it. Well, it's about time I quickly hopped into the issue here. Deborah, who was here to help them with hospitality, was pissed at them, and for good reason.
They're leaving their sections, going outside for cigarettes, which is biggest pet peeve of all.
She definitely wasn't wrong. All she wanted to do was help, but I guess they were used to taking the bar for granted and couldn't follow simple instructions. This eventually led to a huge fight between Renee and Brittany. However, Brittany here, the waitress, was not okay with following orders. She said that she was asked to converse with the customers. What she forgot was that she was supposed to have a conversation in her area. I mean, talk about not paying attention to important details.
You conversate with the customers in your area. It's not that difficult.
But hey, how did Renee feel about such disrespect and talking back like that when all she wanted to do was just help out?
She's trying to help you.
You're staring at her like, what are you gonna do, take her out?
Brittany was such a menace. I mean, you don't even want that drama right now. She shouted and screamed from the rooftops that her paychecks were being bounced. She had been working there for free, and above all this, she wasn't hiding her rage in front of the guests. And that's just not the impression you would want for your bar, right? I mean, employees screaming and fighting with the owner? Not a good look, man. And when Jon confronted Renee that this wasn't the kind of drama she should be keeping around, her response was so fucking lame. Guys, you'll just have to hear it to believe it.
Oh, there's drama here every night.
Well, that's wrong.
I mean, Renee, come on, what the hell were you thinking when you said that? And talking back to Jon as well? The man was here to help you out, and you told him something as hideous as that? How in the world could you pass it off as something that happens regularly? Honestly, that's nothing compared to what happened at this next bar. When our main man Jon Taffer ventured into O-Face Bar, located in Council Bluffs Island, Iowa, he was in quite for an unpleasant shock. Owned by the adventurous couple Matthew and Karen Overmeyer, this bar was their retirement dream turned reality back in 2011. The unique name, inspired by Matt's nickname, instantly caught the attention of the locals, and the place was buzzing with excitement upon its grand opening.
My nickname is Mr. O-Face. My wife was like, why don't we call it O-Face?
Things were going pretty darn well for a while, with the bar raking in a cool $15,000 a month. Not too shabby, right? But this is where the story takes a wild turn. The owners, who had a good deal of overconfidence by now, started partying it up at their own joint. And to make matters worse, their manager screwed up big time. Well, let's just say that he forgot what professionalism meant. Not to mention that Karen, one half of the dynamic duo of owners, had a bit of a drinking problem, and she was often busy downing shots at the bar rather than managing her staff. To top it all off, she conveniently placed the blame on poor Matt for everything that had gone awry. Talk about passing the buck, right?
I could leave her in a better place.
Of course you can, but I'm not gonna let her pass the blame to you.
As far as I could see up to this point, the situation was dire. O-Face Bar was hemorrhaging money like there was no tomorrow, losing a staggering $4,000 every month. That's a humongous loss of nearly $20,000 in profits per month for those of you who are keeping score at home. And that deficit quickly racked up to a whopping $260,000 of debt, which was hanging over their heads like a dark cloud. With just 3 months left before the curtains permanently closed, they were in desperate need of a miracle just to stay above water. But Jon was just so disappointed in Karen. This woman was a mess. And bringing that mess into her own bar? Well, what exactly did you expect would happen?
Karen is sitting at the end of the bar, ringing a bell for drinks.
I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. This couple spelled trouble like no other. And I don't even understand why Jon was helping them after all of their BS. Before I get into the idiotic excuse they made to protect themselves, do you remember the fight the employees had at the start? Well, here's a clip of what Karen said to the innocent employee because she wanted to side with the manager.
And why was I on the ground? Teresa, you ask for it all the time.
Is she even real? She looked so annoyed that she had to let the manager go because of a good employee. These guys don't even know the first thing about running a business. And Karen wasn't the only one messing things up around the place. Matt was equally at fault here. The way he treated his employees was downright disrespectful.
I'm talking to you. You understand me?
Well, you know things aren't going anywhere good because Jon took a step back from saving this place. And honestly, any sane person would. After the kind of craziness we've just seen from a few days of normal operation, I'd hate to see the place on a bad day. But what happened at this next bar could even make someone like Karen blush. You see, Jon Taffer was about to make waves at Bamboo Beach Tiki Bar in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This tropical oasis was owned by Frank, who saw a golden opportunity and grabbed it by the horns. You feel me? He scored a hotel that conveniently housed this sick poolside bar using a genius loophole that made Bamboo Beach one of the rarest beach bars in the entire city. When this joint first opened up, it was straight fire. People were flocking to it like crazy, ready to soak up in the sun, sip on some dope cocktails, and vibe to the lively atmosphere. The cash was flowing, making stacks in profit every single week. It was lit, and both the bar and the hotel partied it up all the way to the bank.
To have days that we would bring $4,000 or $5,000 behind the bar consistently.
But hold up. Soon enough, things took a turn for the worse. Frank got really distracted by the fine babes he hired to work at Bamboo Beach. But here's the problem. He let his eyes wander and lost focus on running a tight ship. The spot started falling apart, and that messed with the profits and the hotel's reputation big time.
Definitely like the pretty girls. That's how we got hired here.
With that kind of behavior, do you really think he's serious about the bar? Now, we've reached a critical point. It was high time for Jon to swoop in and work his magic, restoring Bamboo Beach Tiki Bar to its former glory. But would he be able to save this sinking ship and bring back the vibes that made it legendary? Buckle up, you guys, cause it's about to go down with some of the lamest excuses ever.
This is not an ice bin.
No, but we use it
It
as
doesn't
ice.
have the drainage on it to be an ice bin. This is incorrect.
When Jon and the crew stepped into the kitchen, they came face to face with the infamous cook Barry, who had an attitude bigger than the fryer itself. However, Jon was quick to call out the greasy mess that was lurking in the depths of that thing. But that wasn't the only issue. Oh no, my friend. Turns out, the kitchen was seriously lacking in the hygiene department. Whoa, surprising, right? There were no covers on the food, and even the sauces in the fridge were left exposed. Like seriously, talk about a recipe for disaster. The sheer audacity to call this clean, even with it staring him in the face. The whole place was in a desperate need of a deep clean, so Jon wasted no time in putting the staff to work. There was no escaping the scrub brushes and mop buckets this time around. The following day, Jon gathered the staff for a much-needed meeting, but there was one notable absence: Mia. Surprise, surprise, she was running on her usual fashionably late schedule. I mean, seriously, how many times can someone be fashionably late before it becomes plain old tardiness? But hey, Frank obviously loves his beautiful ladies, and this is what he had to say about them coming late.
People show up late all the time in the bar
course
business.
they
I've been
do.
in bar business my whole life.
Man, he's so predictable. I totally expected that from this guy. As the meeting commenced, Alyssa, the self-proclaimed head bartender, stepped up. But let's be real here, being the head bartender doesn't mean much when you're only in charge of handling the schedule. Talk about a power imbalance, am I right? I mean, come on, where's the accountability? It's time for some serious wake-up calls for this crew. Jon was about to lay down the law and show them that punctuality wasn't a suggestion, but a non-negotiable expectation. But obviously, things got really heated and you'd never expect what happened next.
When she comes to work, she gives me 100%.
When she comes to work,
Yeah.
you're making excuses for keeping her.
Yet again, not surprised. All in all, Frank really needed to take charge of his business because the pretty ladies won't be around all the time. Especially when he's filing for bankruptcy. Well, another bar, another excuse. This time, it's Freaky Tiki in sunny Clearwater, Florida. If I didn't know any better, I'd say we're going for a tiki bar hat trick here. Freaky Tiki was the brainchild of Frank Theriault, who took the plunge and became the proud owner of the joint back in 2008. But he didn't embark on this wild adventure alone. His friend Sean Trimp hopped on board and invested in the bar, scoring himself a sweet 2.5 stake in the business. Talk about a tag team.
Me and Frank, we used to work at a nightclub together. Sean and I thought we could do it better.
To kickstart their journey, Frank and Sean managed to secure a whopping $500,000 in loans, and boy did their hard work pay off. In their 5th year, they raked in a jaw-dropping $1 million. Damn, trust me, the party was poppin' and the cash was flowing. With their growing success, the owners decided to bring in their buddy Woody to manage the joint. Little did they know that their once promising venture would soon take a turn for the worse. You hear that? Everything was going positively. Emphasis on the past tense. As the good times rolled, Frank and Sean found themselves getting a little too comfortable, if you catch my drift. The bar became their playground and they joined in on the party like there was no tomorrow. But quite expectedly, their newfound work-life balance was anything but professional. From excessive drinking to comping bills left and right, their behavior veered way off course, endangering the very foundation of their business.
You're drinking that beer and not paying for it, we're losing the $3 that we should be making on it.
It was time for Jon Taffer to step in, lay down the law, and bring Freaky Tiki back from the brink. Now, mind you, we're about to dive into this chaotic world where things have gone from lit to straight up dumpster fire. It's safe to say that this bar became a hot mess. The toilets and drains were straight up revolting, spewing out sewage right into the bar. Yeah, you heard me right, literal poop party. The customers were like, no thanks, we're out of here. It's no wonder they left in droves.
All 3 toilets overflow and make a river out the door.
And don't even get me started on their financial situation. Ugh, that was a total train wreck. Freaky Tiki was bleeding cash, losing a mind-blowing $6,500 every single month. And let's not forget the mind-boggling debt. I mean, $500,000 in the hole is definitely not chump change. It was like they swiped their credit cards and never looked back.
I maxed out credit cards and lost my savings. What would hurt the most is my family be in trouble.
Jon Taffer and his crew were gonna work their magic and help turn this disaster around. But would they be able to make Freaky Tiki the hottest hangout spot again? Well, it wouldn't be easy. Woody took it way too far and fought with Jon, trying to explain how he was doing all that he was asked to. Honestly, if you hear what people had to say about the food, you'd think the manager should at least check up on it. Because the cook clearly didn't bother listening to Woody, and that led him to be the wrong guy here. And what did he do? He held the owner accountable for it. Man, the excuses never end.
No excuses, Woody, because I will hold your ass accountable. Am I clear?
Rightly said. He needed to hear that loud and clear so he could do better. But hey, as long as they're doing their jobs right and given proper training, at the end of the day, all is well. With that, let's now head straight to Brian's Ice House in Katy, Texas. The owner, Jeff Simon, took a leap of faith to chase his bar-owning dreams back in 2012. He ditched his boring accounting gig at the family practice and went all in, investing a whopping $1.1 million to own this notorious biker bar. But here's the deal. Despite Jeff's efforts to clean up the place, he made one major mistake. He didn't bother changing the name. And let me tell you, that bad rep was sticking like gum to a shoe. The bar regulars were rowdy as hell and refused to bounce, making it impossible for new customers to even begin getting comfortable. Plus, the joint was located in the darkest corner of a dimly lit road, scaring away potential patrons faster than you can say, "Get me out of here."
We didn't know where we were going.
When we walked in, there was a fight.
And hold up, it's not just the customers who were catching some major bad vibes. The staff were extremely rude too. They were literally driving customers away like it was their full-time job.
This is ridiculous.
Now, let's get into the staff drama. So, check this out. The crew is all like, yeah, we're gonna turn this place around and make it better than ever. But hold up, things took a wild turn when Randy dropped a bomb and accused Kimmy of straight up stealing. You know, Jon Taffer ain't the one to mess around with. He's got cameras everywhere, capturing all the action. And guess what? He caught a real shady incident on tape.
Puts the key back by the register, puts the sweatshirt on without putting any money in the register.
Jeff, the owner, had some idea about what was going on, but despite that, he let Kimmy continue to work. Talk about keeping dirty little secrets. But this is where things get really juicy. Jon was like, "Jeff, my man, you gotta handle this situation as soon as possible." So Jeff summoned his inner boss and made the tough call to fire Kimmy for her repeated heists. And let me tell you, she didn't go down without a fight. She confronted Jeff outside, pleading for another chance, begging him to reconsider. Oh boy, here we go.
I don't steal, Jeff, you know that. Have I ever taken $1 from you?
But Jeff wasn't having any of it. He knew it was time to take charge and clean up his bar. So he turned to Shelly, the love of his life, for some backup. Kimmy kept saying that she wasn't stealing, but hey, Shelly was the boss around here and she talked like one. I mean, just go ahead and hear her out on this.
You take something that does not belong to you. It's stealing, Kimmy.
Oh, Kimmy, sorry, but I really don't feel bad for you. Getting rid of her was for the bar's own good. Well, I hope these owners get some major reality checks. And this is what happens when you slack off at work and your boss is Jon Taffer. To start things off, this owner from Colorado reached out to Taffer claiming that he was neck deep in a pool of debt. But when Taffer stepped in to help, he realized that the cause of this was the owner's drinking habits. When Taffer received John Nichols' heartfelt letter, he was moved. In fact, it was the only reason why Taffer was at the bar trying to rescue this place from shutting down. In the letter, Nichols wrote about how he was an active soldier who was stationed in Afghanistan 3 times. What's more, he had conducted medevac rescues over 50 times, which is really impressive. Taffer had instant respect for this man and his achievements, and this is what he had to say about him.
He's done 3 tours in Afghanistan and performed 53 medevac operations in a 13-day period in 2007. This is a guy who saved our lives, of our guys who were putting their lives. He's an absolute hero.
But was he? The Brick House Bar and Grill, located in Colorado Springs, was over $300,000 in debt and was 6 months away from closing down. Nichols was going to be deployed again within the next 6 months, but he couldn't leave the bar in its current state. After all, the business was losing a whopping $8,000 every month. What touched Taffer the most was the way the letter was drafted. He could almost feel the pain of the struggling owner.
I am asking, no, I am begging for you to come help us turn this place around. We have done hundreds of medevac operations overseas, and now I am asking for a rescue of our own.
That's an incredibly powerful statement, isn't it? Taffer was determined to fix this bar, but he really didn't know what he got himself into. Later on, when Taffer began to survey the bar, he got to see Nichols' true personality. He really didn't look like someone who was on the verge of bankruptcy. Just check out what he was busy doing.
This doesn't look like a guy whose house is on a line and $300,000 in the hole.
Hey, Ross, how gorgeous is this one?
He's got a good degree in flirting, though, I'll tell you what.
From handing out free drinks to the female patrons to downing a few himself, Nichols was actually having the time of his life. Since the man in the letter and the man in real life didn't match, Taffer continued to watch the surveillance. Sadly, what unfolds next unveiled the ugly truth of this bar. While Nichols surely had a degree in flirting, Rita, his bartender/girlfriend, was pouring drinks that were filtered through her fingernails.
Pouring it through the cherry? Off the cherry, because I don't have a spoon back here.
Anything that comes off of her finger is going into that person's drink, and then they're drinking it.
Ew, how disgusting is that? But Nichols wasn't bothered because he was busy getting wasted. What an awful owner. Anyway, Taffer then pointed out that the beer system was only pouring out foamy beer. To make matters even worse, the bartenders were tossing the foam out, which was a complete waste. When the camera followed Nichols, Taffer witnessed a shocking sight. Nichols was using a blow dryer to do this.
What is that?
He's melting the ice off of that condenser.
So we gotta do every couple hours, 48 degrees right now.
Once he walked out, the freeze was going to be even deeper since he was pushing all the moisture right into the coils of the condenser. That's exactly why the beers were foaming up. Later on, he was back at the bartending station trying to offer free drinks to the ladies right in front of his girlfriend Rita. She was so pissed that she kicked him out of his own bar. But this didn't bother Nichols one bit. He continued to warm up to the women, which upset Rita so much that she tried to wash away the pain by getting drunk herself.
Drink, please? Please, can I have a drink, somebody?
Finally, Taffer had seen enough and confronted Nichols about his behavior. He was truly a detriment to the bar. Although Nichols wasn't entirely ignorant of the situation, he made no effort to change himself. Did this owner really deserve to be saved? Taffer was so done with him that he simply urged him to get even more drunk and destroy himself along with his failing business.
Have another one. Go ahead, have another one. Why not? Have another one. What's the difference at this point?
Ouch. And just as we expected, Brickhouse Bar and Grill shut down under Nichols' poor leadership. But this next owner urged all of his customers to use their inside voices. But was he even using his? In the third season of the show, Taffer and his crew headed to Austin, Texas to figure out why a bar called the Brixton was going under. The bar was on its last leg and Taffer seemed to be their last hope. As Taffer watched intently through the surveillance cameras, 3 of his spies made an entry into the bar. Little did the owners know that one of the spies was a professional bartender and he was there to nitpick their every move. When he placed an order for the drinks, he was left feeling utterly disappointed.
You can see that it's misty coming out.
Yeah.
Okay? It's meant to be crystal clear.
This
This is kind of gnarly, dude.
you ordered it. What does taste right?
Gin and soda would be fine, man.
Inside voices, please.
Tim Lupa, the owner, who was also a bartender, worked in his own world. What's more, at any chance he got, he was super rude to his customers. Lupa tried to convince the spies that their drink was supposed to taste trashy when the drinks were returned. Crazy, right? It looked like Lupa had a problem with running the bar since he was so unenthusiastic and showed absolutely no hospitality towards his customers. This man was so awful that he would even kick out the little customers he had since their voices got a little too loud for comfort. Lupa stated that his patrons should use their inside voices and that he tolerated no such behavior in his bar. Well, it looks like Lupa had some major issues. Just look at this guy.
Chill out or get out. I don't go to your bar and act like a
Is this guy nuts? The only hope the bar had was Lupa's wife Sarah, who also worked as a bartender. Surprisingly, she was the only one on the team who was able to work efficiently, and she even managed to make some cocktails that didn't suck. But take a look at Lupa's reaction.
Did we make those right?
It's actually really good.
You know why? Because I didn't touch the bottle, probably.
Lupa was sadly jealous of his wife and made an extra effort to not only mock his wife, but the customers as well. Lupa failed as a bartender, as an owner, and above all, as a man. When Taffer confronted him, he gave lame excuses to cover up his flaws. This triggered an already enraged Taffer even further.
Is this a bartender who cared about what you wanted?
Nope. Austin's unique, trying to keep it unique.
No, you're being a fool.
As Taffer was trying to point out his shortcomings, Lupa chimed in with a remark that got Taffer even more riled up. He said this.
A customer does something you don't like, you don't treat them like a child. Use your inside voice.
Are you going to use your inside voice?
A truly undeserving candidate for the show. But what do you think? This next owner, on the other hand, was so drunk that none of Taffer's words actually got to his head. In another exciting bar rescue episode, an owner was so plastered that he couldn't stand or answer Taffer without slurring his words. And check out exactly what Taffer thought about him.
This guy is the anti-owner. He's doing everything wrong that he possibly can, and the days of this club are numbered if I don't rescue it quick.
The bar's owner, Paul, was a party maniac whose only skill was to party. Even when Taffer arrived, Paul was neither bothered nor fearful. Paul couldn't help but blurt out a bunch of crap since he didn't know how to hold himself together in the presence of Taffer. The famous rescuer was thoroughly disappointed with Paul's behavior and commented that his employees were all just adding fuel to the fire. And take a look at how drunk this man really was.
How drunk are you now?
Taffer finally reached his limits when Paul refused to apologize or offer any sort of consideration to his employees. Paul had gotten on Taffer's bad side and nobody could save him now.
How would you like it if I abuse you and tell you that you're a Would you like it? Do you like when I talk to you that way? Why should they like it when you talk to them that way?
Paul, being in this condition, couldn't understand the full scope of his problems. All he did was act like a child while complaining about this and that without ever taking responsibility as an owner. And to top it all off, he was really mean.
Fill my drink. Oh, bitch.
While Taffer was trying to explain to the manager and the staff that Paul had to leave, Paul started to get even more aggressive with his employees.
Well, give me my drink.
Paul, behave.
As a drunk, I have no interest in talking to you.
I want a drink. I'm thirsty.
Taffer couldn't find common ground with Paul and failed to have a proper adult conversation with him. He continuously kept screaming at Taffer about unrelated things, and that's when Taffer decided to walk out. He even asked the employees to escort Paul out. But when the employees refused to give in to Paul's demands, he started to throw a temper tantrum before making his final exit.
Get him the hell out of here. When he's sober, I'll come back here tomorrow and fix this bar for you guys.
Fill my drink.
No.
Listen to me. If you want to work here, give me a drink, I'll go home.
However, that wasn't the end of it. He made a whole scene outside the bar as well. And sadly, this is what happened to the employees.
This is why we're dead. Completely dead.
It comes to no surprise at all that this bar closed down shortly after the episode was aired. Anyway, this next owner was busy playing fantasy football while his bar was running amok. The Sandbar Grill in Coconut Grove, Florida was losing over $7,000 a month. If things didn't change soon, the business would be forced to close down in the next 2 months. Later on, Taffer sent in some spies who were served drinks that were far from being authentic or even palatable. The cocktails were too sweet and the beer was extremely flat. Was there anything that could make this experience worse?
It's like straight sugar. I don't even taste alcohol in it.
Next up came an old-fashioned drink that was served in a martini glass. Take a look at how it turned out.
Oh, in a martini glass. Sophisticated. This is his makeup drink. I can tell you it's too cloudy for an old-fashioned. There's no orange. There's a cherry in there. There's a cherry in there.
To make things even worse, the fish that they ordered was completely raw inside. Taffer rang the spies up and saved them from getting sick.
Nick, I wouldn't eat too much of that stuff. You hear me, brother? You're gonna get sick off that.
I got you.
But
As for the owners, one of them was serving customers and trying to manage the bar, while the other one was mysteriously missing. Matt, one of the co-owners, was the only one who was concerned about running the business day to day. Wondering where the other one was? Check this out.
You know what he's doing? Fantasy football. He's not even trying anymore.
Albert, the other owner, often wasted his time and willingly let his bar go downhill. Something really had to be done about this man. Meanwhile, Taffer was furious after his spies were served fajitas that were literally smoking when a sizzler is only meant to sizzle, not smoke. After the smoke died out, the spies were met with rubbery chicken that wasn't cooked properly and potato fries that were frozen and chewy. This bar definitely needed Taffer's help, but did they deserve it? Well, what we can say is that you truly deserve the best, and that's what we're here to offer. If you want to keep watching more content like this, be sure to drop a massive like down below and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It's completely free and helps us out, so why not just do it? With that out of the way, let's see what Taffer had in store for Albert, the missing owner. When confronted, Albert was so quick to give quirky remarks and had absolutely no remorse for his sinking business. He clearly didn't care. As a result, Taffer laid it out for him plain and clear and said this.
how's your fantasy football league doing?
My fantasy league is doing very well. It's doing very well.
How's your bar doing?
My bar's not doing as well.
Well, I bet if you put some time into your bar rather than your fantasy football league, you might actually make some money.
Albert came out with one lame excuse after another. He wasn't even willing to admit his mistakes. While the bar is still somehow open today, we don't think that Albert deserved Taffer's precious time and money one bit. So these were the bar rescue owners who didn't deserve help. But who knows, maybe one of them did turn things around and rose to the occasion. By the way, do you know any other bar rescue owners who didn't deserve Taffer's help? Let us know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, guys.